Former West Virginia running back CJ Donaldson has committed to transfer to Ohio State. We need to talk about what that means for the running back room that Carlos Loughlin is putting together in 2025 and why I think this is a really great pickup for the Buckeyes. What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching the #1 college football show, please subscribe to the channel. Join the more than 123,000 people that make up this community. It is a lively one. The comment section is always popping. I'm always in there. They talk noise. Sometimes I talk noise back. But for the most part, we are having a very good time talking college football 24/7, 365 days each year. And you can expect segments like this, reacting to news, instant reaction to games, trying to get out in front of what the narrative is might be, and then following it as it forms. We don't do the whole, the media has a narrative thing here. No, the players, the coaches, they tell us what the story is going to be with their actions, with their choices, and this is such a segment. CJ Donaldson is an outstanding pickup for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Remember, this is a guy that started out as a tight end at West Virginia and made the transition to running back out of necessity. Turns out to be one hell of a player. He is also big, strong, and fast. Every bit of 6'1", 238 pounds. And he's put together over about 2,000 yards in his career rushing, but back-to-back seasons of more than 700 yards with just over about 160 carries per for the Mountaineers. Mountaineers had lots of problems this year. Some problems last year, but ended up finishing strong, just weren't able to do that this year. And then when you got a guy like Neil Brown who gets fired, everybody else usually flees and doesn't get retained. Well, Rich Rod, I think, might have had a spot for CJ Donaldson because most people would have had a spot for CJ Donaldson. But it was an opportunity for him to trade up, and he did that. That's what Quinshon Judkins did at Ole Miss. You go from a team that might make its conference championship, but might not, more on the not than the might will, to a team that you know is going to be competing for national championships year in and year out, because that's just what the brand is at Ohio State. I've gone through this, but I need to continue to harp on it. One of the reasons that Ohio State is such a power is they don't do seasons where they lose games or lose more games than they win. And they do more seasons of 10 wins or more than most can really shake a stick at. We're talking about a program that has never, ever had an 8-loss season in its history. And the last time that it had a losing record outside of that Luke Fickell year, I mean, dude, we're talking about like 1988. Like, they put out Heisman Trophy winners. They put out national champions. They put out outstanding players like Jeremiah Smith. They put out players like Marvin Harrison Jr. They put out players like Jackson Smith and Jigba. Even the guys that transfer away because they're deep down on the depth chart, like Jameson Williams, goes off to Alabama, has himself one hell of a career, and then had 143 yards receiving for the Detroit Lions just Sunday. I really like this pickup for a number of reasons. A, you know you're going to lose Travion Henderson no matter what. He's out of eligibility after this year. So you need at least a 1B tailback if Quinshon Judkins decides to forego entering the NFL draft and return to Ohio State. I think that's actually not a bad idea for him, given what the landscape is for name, image, and likeness. I tell the kiddos this often. Stay in college as long as you can and make as much as you can, because the NFL ain't going nowhere. Your eligibility is. You've only got so many years you get to play college football under the rules. I say maximize that time and maximize the money gain. Throw it into your favorite hedge fund. Throw it into an IRA and leave it alone, because you're going to make more in the NFL. And then when you get to retirement and you are having to go through these painful surgeries with knees, with hips, with shoulders, you're feeling pretty good about the spot that you find yourself in at age 40, as opposed to how you feel right now, which is, you 19 to 26 and bulletproof, which, it's not that far from the truth. Talking about a guy like Quinshon Judkins, who became, I think, the #1 tailback at Ohio State just as soon as he started playing football there. He is that dude. And those of us that had played enough EA Sports College Football 25, especially earlier this year, had enough of the Quinshon Judkins spin move. It is OP, and it was ruining the game, because anybody that had that dude was just cooking you with him and then trying to make like they did something great on the sticks. Nah, man, the game just made that dude into a monster. It was like playing with Michael Vick in 2004 Madden. It's just not fair. If you picked Ohio State, I got to think that you're playing rank play and you're trying to get to the highest tier, but I look at what they got in CJ Donaldson. I'm going, oh, they go instead of thunder and lightning, they can go thunder and thunder is what they can do, right? You also got to add in here that James Peoples is probably going to get a lot more carries than people realize. He's the number 3 tailback this year. He has separated. He was the only other guy that I was hearing about in preseason camp alongside Jeremiah Smith as a guy who was showing up and showing out. Now, James Peoples showing out like you would expect most true freshmen to show out. Jeremiah Smith is showing out unlike we have seen at that position in quite a long time. He's just been that dude. So you're getting a guy in Donaldson that had 798 yards rushing in 2023, 734 yards rushing in 2024, averaging about 4.6 yards per carry over the length of those 2 seasons. And then you're getting to add, I know that Sam Williams-Dixon is there, but I'm more interested in the additions of Bo Jackson and Turbo Rogers than the 2025 class. Turbo Rogers, who has one hell of a name, right? Is an outstanding tailback with great speed. Devin Achan is, I think, the comp for him. He's got an 11-second 100 meters, but I think he could probably get down to 10-8, 10-7 if he wanted to do it. And you're getting dudes, I think, that are going to help you out alongside whatever else you think you're going to get into the portal. I think Isaiah West is also in that group too, but I'm more interested in what Bo Jackson and Rogers are going to be able to do to help out that running back room. And Carlos Lockett has done a really good job of making sure that the cupboard stays stocked and it stays full. We know how fragile the running back position is, and you can never have too many tailbacks. But getting a guy of this caliber to join you as a rising senior really is a declaration of who you want to be also going into next year. You're also getting a great offensive tackle out of Minnesota. And I think that's going to be much more of a deal as we get closer to preseason and they host Texas in September. You're going to look at this offensive line and you're going to wonder just who on this offensive line right now is going to get to stay. Donovan Jackson's gone, right? And I think he has made a case for being the best offensive lineman that Ohio State has over the last couple of years because of what he's been asked to do, right? Left guard to left tackle. We all know how hard that transition is. Matter of fact, guard, they say, is the last stop in the NFL for an offensive lineman because you don't need to be elite at anything. You just need to be a good enough athlete. Whereas a tackle, you probably need to be technically sound, technically elite, and rolling people up. There's a reason why we talk about Orlando Pace in the Heisman Trophy conversation, and we did. And we didn't really give that much to Quentin Nelson, who might be the best guard this side of Anthony Munoz who's ever played football. Quentin Nelson, what he was able to do at Notre Dame, especially if you hear offensive linemen talk about it, is just a different kind of athlete. It is a skill player playing on offensive line. I realize that there's offensive linemen in their feelings talk about it takes skill to play our position. You know what I mean, dog. You know what I mean. Like Quentin Nelson, Tyron Smith, a couple other dudes I could think of, Zach Martin in his heyday, just running other defensive backs down, right, to clear the path. Like some of this stuff is just the angry hippo who's just faster than a speeding bullet coming after you. I don't know that you're going to have that on the offensive line at Ohio State next year, but you might not need to. I do know this. You're going to remake this thing around what Jeremiah Smith can do. If Quinshon Judkins comes back, what he can do. And then we're going to see, right? Carnell Tate, Brandon Ennis. But Julian Sayin, I'm not sure about. Y'all are sure about. We'll see how that goes. I do think that this is a declaration from Ryan Day also of what he expects to be doing in 2025. We'll talk about that as Ohio State continues to play. They have a tremendously big game coming up in the Rose Bowl against Oregon, a rematch of a really great regular season game, maybe one of the top 10 regular season games of this season. And this time it is in a traditional spot. It is a traditional Pac-12 foe versus a traditional Big Ten foe, even though they're both in the Big Ten now, at the Rose Bowl. I don't know how you could not be excited about that. Ohio State and Oregon feels like it could be a national championship game. And I think that Ohio State is going to be ready in a different way to try to win this football game. I think the defense that Oregon saw is not going to be the defense that they see this time. A defense that they saw at Autzen was the one that even Nick Saban went out and said was vanilla. There was nothing unpredictable about that defense. They didn't really blitz. They tried to get home with 4. It wasn't working. Dylan Gabriel's picking them apart. And then you had this liability in Denzel Burke where Evan Stewart was just cooking him. And Tez Johnson was just cooking them. And when they weren't, Jordan James was running all over them. You can't have that happen. The game that Ohio State showed against Tennessee is the game that I expect they will show against Oregon. Now, I'm going to say, not having Dylan Sampson for most of that game does influence the Tennessee offense. But that ain't got nothing to do with Tennessee getting 42 dropped on his head like a 9-pound hammer. All right? That ain't got nothing to do with the offense. That's the defense. The defense that has the Broyles Award finalist in Tim Banks and rotates in like nobody's business on that defensive line was getting absolutely crushed in that pass protection that Ohio State was putting together. So I don't want to hear no more about what the offense at Tennessee was doing. That's one thing. The guy that had the Broyles Award finalist list is over there, not Jim Knowles, who held this team to 10 points, fewest points Tennessee had scored against anybody all season. Okay? And then you talking about what Chip Kelly and Ryan Day came up with when they put up 42, which is the most that anybody had ever scored on Tennessee all season. I think it's a different Ohio State team. It's also a team with no Heisman Trophy finalist, no Broyles Award finalist, no Head Coach of the Year finalist, no Biletnikoff Award finalist, no Thorpe Award finalist, no Buckeyes Award member. There's nobody on here this thing that was winning any individual awards. They didn't beat Michigan. They didn't win the Big Ten championship. They did lose to the number one team in the country who's still undefeated. This is what they have left. This is it. They have to sell out to win this game. They have to sell out to win the national championship, or they risk becoming what we think of Penn State as being, what we thought of Texas as being, a program that is doing the absolute least with the absolute most.